Hey, my name's Zach. This is going to be the first time that I'm on camera for 10 Talent Trading. I want this video to be a breakdown for the last couple months that I've been doing this $100 account challenge, and just kind of record the process of what it's been like for me. And I mostly want to talk through the emotions and how I've regulated all that over the course of the last couple months. And then obviously the overview of like how these trades are going and where I'm at. It's been my first time on camera, so please forgive me. The audio quality, I think I've sorted out. Those first couple videos, it wasn't that great, but I played with some settings, and I think I've got it in a good spot, at least good enough for where I want it at the moment. And the camera quality, I'm just operating off my laptop camera for now. This will be something I upgrade in the future, but it'll have to be what it'll be for the moment. So I guess we'll not stay on this for too long. Let me actually pull that down for now. I want to first kind of like jump into the technical analysis of where the account is at overall. For the individual investing account, we are down below our starting value. I should probably pop this to the year to date. We started this challenge actually in February. We didn't really trade throughout. There we go, snap two. We didn't trade throughout January, just didn't have the time for it post holidays. Got into back into day trading here in February, and we're down 12 bucks and 5 cents, 11% on our account total. We didn't start exactly at 100. We got like some promotional stuff from Robinhood. But this is mainly trading off of the opening flag play that I've shown on my playbook a couple times now in different videos. So most of what we're going to be talking about is based on this opening flag play and our overall yearly goal for where we wanted this account to be. I'll say, like, just to kind of start this out, it's been extremely difficult to regulate emotions for this specific trade. Kind of actually pull this back open here and kind of talk through some of the specific plays that we've made. In total, we have made 20 trades in this opening flag play. Two huge red losses, one that was two different trades that end up sizable on the day, but two really huge red losses. That's most of the issue in trying to actually establish, well, profits, obviously. So both of these came on account of me digging in way too deep on a couple of trades that just went sour from the start. I didn't set my stop loss correctly. There was a little bit of a technical issue in the one that I lost like 13.49% on IBO. That was the fifth. And not that that makes for a good excuse, but I've just put myself in a tough position. I think trading on Robinhood's been really hard. I'll voice that right from the start. It's not very conducive to these fast plays that an opening flag usually lends itself to. And I've kind of got bit a couple times in the pre-market because you can't set stop losses very easily. At least I haven't figured out how to set them very quickly in the pre-market, which in the last few trades that I've taken, I've noticed, a little bit more reliability in that than what I started out in and trading this opening flag play out at 9:30 at market open. So that's definitely been a huge issue for me. And just trying to iron out this opening flag play and what it's supposed to look like. So it's definitely been tough to try to get a real feel on what I'm doing with this strategy and trying to make it profitable long term. It's not dead in the water yet. I still kind of want to play with this going forward. I think I need a little bit of a break from the opening flag play. I tried one as recently as April 1st, CYCN, with all the news on the war and everything going on over in Iran right now. I feel like it's making a lot of things really goofy, and that definitely doesn't help the situation. So I think for now, at least, I'm going to pull away from this opening flag play and try to reevaluate the strategy overall. I think for starters, I need to do it in the pre-market. It seems like that's where everyone's doing this. I was probably a fool to even try it at market open. Anyways, it's not really a real market open anymore. I know that there's differences in how the market functions coming into market open, but this opening flag play has not been a good strategy for this small account challenge so far. I'm not sure what I'll replace it with yet. But that's kind of just where we're at for the moment. I've put 20 trades into this so far. So I'll stop working. Put 20 trades into this so far. So I think that I have at least given this enough time and enough air uh, to say pretty confidently that for me right now, this isn't working. That doesn't mean the opening flag play doesn't work. It means that I need to edit how I am taking on this strategy. Ross Cameron is a huge proponent of this. He's out there still making money, even though the market's kind of tough right now. So like I said, I think in an earlier video, if you trade exactly like the other person with the exact same intent, the exact same entry, the exact same exit, exact same understanding of what's happening, you're going to make the same money or lose the same money. That's an obvious statement, but he's making money doing this play. So there's something there. There's an established pattern that's working for him, and I still need to find that. But for now, I think I need to take a little bit of a break on it. Not because we're giving up on it, not because there's not something here, but I think I need to seriously sit back and reevaluate what my entries have looked like, the time that I'm trading, and what my stop losses have been set at, and ultimately, my emotions need to get put into check, because a huge part of why this has been a loss for me is really just based on a couple really bad plays. I would even argue some of these larger ones that I had later on, I shouldn't have chased. Like I was down, I think like 4% on AIM, if I remember right. I should have probably recorded that separately, and probably, again, on Roma was down like 3 or 4%. And I could have just left it there for the day, but instead I dug in deeper and lost, a pretty substantial amount of money. And again, it's only $100. So this is more about the learning experience than it is the values. That's why I'm recording this both in my profit loss and for dollars and profit loss for percentage, so that I can really map out on this side of things exactly how I'm performing from day to day. And it's not so much about, actually putting real numbers on the board. It's more about the learning experience. So these prove out that, and even some of these trades beforehand, just because they're positive doesn't mean they were trades that were well taken. I'm proving out that I'm not disciplined in this strategy. Generally speaking, I would argue that in the latter half of this that I was a little bit more disciplined, but for following the strategy that I have in place anyways. But that might also mean that the strategy that I have needs to change. I might need to trade in the pre-market instead of after market open around 9:30. And my entries might need to look a little bit different. So that's enough on the opening flag play. I think I'm kind of beating a dead horse here, but now I kind of want to pull the attention over to this VWAP strategy that I've been testing out on my Roth account. So I've taken a few trades in this so far. I have a considerably larger account. I'm started, I think, with a little bit less than $1,000 over in that account. And the way this VWAP rejection put has been going for me is essentially, I should have pulled up a chart for this. Maybe I can give an overlay on it in the video. But essentially what you're doing is you're allowing the market to open, allowing it to work out, usually until about like 10:30 on these large cap stocks. I could probably pull this open. And you're waiting to see if there's a sell-off, a pullback from the market open, which is not what it's doing today. But let's see if we can pull back to one real quick, because it's been a few days since we've had a proper sell-off with the market kind of resurging off that 200 EMA on the dailies. But right here is here. This is a great example. So here we've got a day where we had a huge sell-off coming into the market open and a retest up to VWAP, and it initially failed and resurged over. Ideally, what we'd want to see is maybe even a little bit of a larger initial failure, a try at VWAP, it fails back down below and make a new low, it tries again to VWAP, which would have dropped further, tries again to VWAP, and then fails again at VWAP. That's ideally what we'd want to see, but this isn't necessarily a bad structure either. Our entry on this would have actually, because I almost never play the first pullback, and I almost never the second, unless it's set up really, really nicely. But I probably would have been in at this failure. Maybe at this. Actually, and I think that's my trade right there. So I actually was in a little bit earlier than I should have been, earlier than confirmation, and got out of the trade before I could really make real money on it. So this was an example right here of a trade where I got in too early, but I entered in at this candle that failed. It had dropped, I think, below. I think how this went. I think it had opened here, went a little bit green, and then dropped down below. This is a poor entry if I did enter right there. I wonder if this is wrong on this chart right now. But either way, entered in on this candle, and the goal is for it to fail back below VWAP, and then like this one did, they grind out for the rest of the day, and sometimes have a little bit of a resurgence towards market close to try and reclaim VWAP. But generally, they'll grind down for the rest of the day. We jump in on a put option, usually like a buck or two out of the money, just depending on the structure of the trade and where things are setting up, and just let it grind. It's been really nice for me because I've been able to take this trade um, and kind of just put it on the back burner on a separate monitor. For my profession, since I'm on camera, I can talk through this. I'm actually a design builder, so I start, especially like right now, being early spring. It's just now starting to thaw here in Michigan. I do a lot of work designing for other people, homes, some light commercial work, stuff like that. So it keeps me in office quite a bit in this season. And so for this trade, it's been nice to be able to just put this up on a separate monitor, and then I just slide my stop loss after my profits, just kind of like marking it based on different resistance levels and shelves, so that like once it retests, I'm usually like placing my stop loss back at that retest, or like because it's options, and so it's a little bit difficult to place it perfectly, but roughly there. And that way, if there is like a resurgence back up to VWAP or something like that, I'm out. I take my profits. They'll not all of it usually, and it's still fine. But I can still work and kind of pay attention to that and give very low focus to this side of the day in the trading, so it doesn't interfere with my entire day. So to kind of open this back up here. So I've taken 6 trades so far in this. I still got to get it moved over into the playbook stats. It's something that's on my list. I've had some pretty good success. I should probably block this out as red. This is my first attempt at it. And while it's my highest winning trade, I was a fool. I held this through the night. I shouldn't have done that. Actually, no, that's not this one. I'm sorry. There was a separate one before this. I didn't record it in this VWAP rejection put where I held it through the night, and gained a substantial amount of money on it. But it was silly of me. I held on a gut play more than anything else, and I shouldn't have done that. I ended up green on it, but I really shouldn't have done that. The rest of these are actually pretty clean trades, with the exception of actually, funny enough, this one that I lost a little bit on. That was probably a fool's errand there. But all of these have fit fairly well into the VWAP rejection put strategy. Some stronger than others, and I'm liking it so far. I think the market's starting to turn right now, so that it's not so conducive for put strategies. Definitely with the sell-offs that we've had coming through this Iran war, I think that the market trend overall being negative has helped a lot for the VWAP rejection put strategy. And I'm definitely, for my Roth account, I think I'm still going to continue in the options platform. I really like trading on options with this account. I think that it's been a really good experience where I can manage my downside really well. And the way these grinders work on large cap stocks, it's been really nice, getting a real understanding of just a select few stocks, and being able to just make plays based off those. I feel like I'm getting a knack for how they behave, why they behave the way they do. And there's always stuff, unpredictability that's going to cause issues with that. But overall, I think it's been really good. It's been a really good experience. All that to say, overall, going really good for this VWAP rejection put, going really good in the Roth account, not going very well at all over. I gotta pull that back up for you. Not going very well at all over in this individual investing account, which is the small $100 trading account. I might look into a different play to try to get this thing kickstarted a little bit better. I just don't think that this strategy works well for my personality. Um, I like to think that, and this is something that, not to preach to other people because I'm in the learning experience here, but what I've noticed so far, even just in the couple months that I've been back into this, is I feel like I have a fairly high emotional tolerance for, being up or down any given amount or whatever. I don't, especially when it's like I've already kind of counted for this money, it to be lost. Speaking of the small account, not the Roth account, obviously. But in a small account challenge like this, like if I lose $100, it sucks, but I'll recover. It'll be okay. And so I feel like, emotionally I've been able to regulate that really well. And that has really been that much of an issue. The fear and anxiety of losing money isn't so much creeping in, but I'm definitely noticing a bias in myself for like, wanting to be right. I think that's what it's coming from on a lot of these trades. And it's been really tough with the follow through on this strategy after market open being so poor. Because John and I, my day trading buddy from Bible study, have talked about this several times. Like the follow through for this strategy after market open is just, it's punishing. It's just punishing. I can't tell you how many of those trades that I've set up on that. I mean, and I'm not experienced at this, but I could tell you full blown, it's a good trade. It's a good setup. Like it dips back, touches the 90 MA on the 5-minute chart, and it's got the upward momentum, and the MACD's open, and yada 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 yada, and then it breaks a new high. There's confirmation we should have a slam dunk here, and it'll pop like 4 cents and then crater immediately. So, and I've had my stop losses set, so we're covered, and it is what it is. But so many times, at least 5 or 6 of those trades, I feel like I really had the discipline, stuck in like I was supposed to, and just got smacked anyways. And I think that led to a lot of frustration in where I was like making gut calls on other plays. You might even have seen it. Let me pull it back open. In my Excel sheet, I've got it listed down here, gut plays. And so far, you can see they're not working out that great. These are on options. I didn't record a lot of them in the small account opening flag plays. There's a couple trades that I took that I don't think I actually recorded in here because they just didn't count towards an actual opening flag setup. They were just garbage. Like I was just trading garbage. Like I've got to admit that fully. Like this is way harder than it looks. This has been a really good practice for discipline. And that's, I want to tie into the second half of the video here. And I'll probably cut so that I can take a break here and kind of think it through a little bit further. But first half, focusing on the actual technical analysis of what we have here for the accounts, where they're at, where the strategies are landing. In the second half, I kind of want to dig a little bit deeper into myself, my emotional regulation, and how this pertains to the overall theme of 10 talent trading, which is proper stewardship of my time and money. I'm making an investment time-wise and obviously financially into doing this. So like it's paramount that it pays off. Now, I'm taking I won't skip ahead to that part of the video just yet. Let's stick in the technical analysis for now. But just to kind of give a prelude to that. So not keeping up on this goal so far. We're definitely far behind. That's okay. I think I said that right from the outset in one of the earlier videos that we probably weren't going to be able to hit this goal by the end of the year because I knew that this was going to be way more difficult than how the math plays out. This assumes no human error. This assumes, or at least relatively small human error. This assumes that I'm going to get in and do the number of trades that I say I'm going to. I have not. This assumes that I'm going to actually hit this consistent number, which I have not. It assumes that my win-loss ratio, which is basically just my skill in being able to, my skill in pattern recognition and how I'm going to be able to spot these is going to be there, and it just hasn't. And then, this is just a factor of like the actual trade itself, the play itself, and what that should produce in terms of a spread between the profit and loss. And that hasn't happened either. So I would say that as far as the number of days trading goes, this might actually need to be reevaluated on the basis of like this number needs to come down because I've noticed I actually don't have the time to do as much as I thought I was going to. And so I'm probably going to reduce all of these by like 30%. That's okay. For me right now, I've got a small business that I'm running. Like I said, I'm a design builder and I've got to put more time into that. I can't come to this trading and expect to be able to put in, 15, 20 days of trading every single month. That's a lot. That's a lot. And so I need to be okay with bringing that down a little bit right now, especially when we're in this proving ground of, hey, how are we going to find a profitable strategy? Because that's really where we're at right now. What separates us from being a trader and being a gambler is obviously whether or not you're staying consistently successful. And right now, we're not there. So what I don't want to do is overinvest in time, overinvest in my effort, and overinvest financially into this and burn myself and my family, frankly, in doing so. So we're gonna not smash the brakes, but we're gonna gently press the brakes on this, reevaluate the strategy, see if we can find something for that small account to just be able to get some base hits, just a little bit more simple base hits, to be able to get this thing rolling and really reevaluate our overall goals for that small account. On the VWAP rejection put, again, this is more like over my Roth account. I'm still probably not going to do a whole lot of videos on this right now. It's going well. I'm trying to be very, very careful with this. It's a larger amount of money and money that I don't necessarily want to lose. So I'm trying to be very careful in my downside in any given trade. I'm trying to only get in when I'm extremely confident in the movements of that stock. This so far has been good, but it's only 6 entries into this. So I can't put too much weight into it. I can't stress enough that seeing, success over 6 entries means absolutely nothing from a statistical standpoint. This could all just be luck. Really. This could all just be luck as of right now. So I'm not going to take this and jump in headlong. I still want to keep grinding at it and developing that VWAP rejection put. But as this market is kind of shifting, with some of the news we've got around the war, I'm surprised that it is shifting, but it has. It's bounced off a key level in the market that it has 2 times in the past. We'll see if that trend continues. But if it does, we might have to put a pause on this as well and try to find a different strategy. So that'll mean more study, more time that I'm not actively trading, and more, more patience, just more patience. So yeah, I think that's probably good enough on the technical analysis for now. So now I think I'll cut right here and then we'll jump to talking about, the emotional regulation side of things for me. All right. So I want to jump more into the emotional regulation side of things and where I'm at, like spiritually in relation to 10 talent trading. Um, and I just want to start off by saying this. I want to put the trap right out front, where the trap we can fall into in any endeavor in life is, well, I'm going to commit this to God. Commit to God your plans and He'll establish your paths. That's an important thing to put at the forefront of everything you do. I guess, at least for me and what I've seen from other Christians, observing them, observing myself, observing the church at large, is a common trap to fall into is, well, I'm just going to do this thing the way that I do it, and then I'll just paint God over top of it. And, oh, praise God, this went well, and, thank Him for that. And it's like, okay, that's fine, but that's not, I don't think that's the point, there of what's being said in a lot of the passages that you'll see in the New Testament about setting God first, and how our heart should be aimed at Him in relation to 10 talent trading, in relation to money, in our financial resources. Uh, this for me is one of the things that I have decided is a passion of mine. And I mean this, like I have decided this. I'm not saying this comes from God. Important distinction here. I sat down at the start of this year and I said, I really like this. I really feel like I'm good at this. And I'm talking about a few different aspects of my life here. Like I'm good at these things. I like these things. I want to focus on these things in my life because I have a horrible habit. A lot of people call it ADD. I don't know. I'm just going to call it a trait of my personality that I'll obsess over. And I have a few of these things I do this with. I'll obsess over something for like a solid month. And then, you know, I let it take over more than it probably should. This is a problem. This is a problem because the real trick, or at least for me, what's difficult, the real trick in all this is you can't let what's good take over what's great, take over what's grand, take over what's perfect. And so, God needs to be the pinnacle of our list of priorities, of our personal hierarchy at all times. And that's stressed, I don't even need to point to anything specific. If you've spent any time reading the Bible, that's stressed so many times. That might be one of the central themes of the entirety of the Bible, Old Testament and New, is that God needs to be the number one priority above even your family, above your passions, above your health, your wealth, all of it. It needs to be above that. And so to get back to triple talent, or 10, oh my gosh, triple T, 10 talent trading is that an easy trap to fall into would be to take this endeavor and say, oh, I'm doing this for God. When in reality, I'm doing it for me, and all I'm doing is just painting God over the top of it for others to see. And that is the proper meaning of taking the Lord's name in vain. Not something that we should do lightly. It's up high on the list of commandments, or early, I should say, in the list of commandments for a reason. It's a grave sin, and we should really focus on not doing that with anything. And to kind of draw this back to other businesses that I've seen in the area that'll like advertise that they're Christians and use that as part of the advertisement. I can think of an electrician in the area who's got like the cross as the filament inside the light bulb. And I've always thought, like, man, what a risk to take. What a risk to take to put God as part of your advertisement in this. Like, you're going to be held. I don't think people understand. It's like, as soon as you do that, you're held to a much, much higher standard than everyone else in God's eyes. Like there's a reason in the New Testament we see so much of Jesus showing kindness and mercy and being gentle towards the low in spirit. But when it came to the Pharisees, I would argue very easily, I think, that there wasn't so much mercy for them. And it's because they're leading the little ones astray. And so that's what we need to be careful of, I think, when we, and me included in this. So I'm trying to be careful with this. But when we say, all right, God, I'm going to let you lead me in this. I'm going to put you on the front page of this. This is yours. Run this with me. I want to run this with you. This is yours, God. You're the leader here. Let me follow. When we do that with business endeavors or with anything that's not like expressly inside the church, there's a danger there. And I want to acknowledge that with 10 talent trading immediately. Because the trap I don't want to fall into is, say that this is for God, and in all reality, I'm just trying to make profit off this. So again, back to the overall mission of 10 talent trading and where I sit inside this. I want to actually pull some scripture into this. This might be a much longer video than I've ever done in the past. So we'll see how long this takes, but I did a little bit of, not a long Bible study. In all honesty, I spent probably like an hour or so just finding some verses. And this is something that I've been chewing on very slowly over the last few months. and thinking about this for 10 talent trading and then a few other endeavors that I have. And one of the things that I want to call to immediately is all the way back to Genesis 9. And we could probably read through all of that and it would be great. But for brevity in time here, I'm going to just jump right to 7. And you be fruitful and multiply, increase greatly on the earth and multiply in it. Um, and then, it goes on into the covenant about the flood. So to kind of give context to that, and, previous context to a lot of Genesis is obviously, walking through Adam and Eve and a quick synopsis of the early fathers. And there's a lot of great things here. So please read that in full context. And that's really important there. But for brevity, I'll stick to this part. Be fruitful and multiply, increase greatly on the earth and multiply in it. And I'm in the ESV for the rest of this video, just so everybody understands. So this is the original covenant. The start of the original covenant is you need to go forth and multiply. So God gives us this. I forget, in another video that I watched recently, actually, they gave a much better name for it than I'm ascribing to it right now. But essentially, it's just here's the order for how you need to position yourself in the world. Like this is your focus. Here's a focus for you. Aim at this. Like God's handing that to Noah. And this is an important thing to note because we haven't left this. Now, this has evolved and changed, and our heart posture is going to be more developed. I wouldn't say different necessarily. I would say more developed post this covenant. But it's good to come back here too and to note that we are still under this. Like this is something that God calls us to, is to be profitable, to multiply and spread throughout the earth. So I don't think that it matters as much in the internal sense, but I also want to draw special attention to, I mean, I'm going to be harsh right off the rip here, but I think a lot of people in the church kind of skip past this, that what we're doing in this world does in fact matter. Not insofar that it's an answer to the eternal questions posed later in the Old Testament and obviously like sharpened to a razor's edge in the New Testament. But I mean, this is still here. So I would say that the lack of focus, let me word it this way. The lack of focus on bringing God into the fold in our daily lives, in the mundane things that we do, has really been heavy on me the last year or so. I've had a lot of time to really just think about this. As a carpenter, as a builder, I spend a lot of time doing very repeatable tasks, things that you would expect a robot to be able to do. And I think in our modern world, it's so easy to kind of brush those kinds of things off, that work off, as unimportant, as kind of a means to an end. It doesn't really matter that much. And we're all, going to return to the dust anyways. And like, to bring it all like into Ecclesiastes, like there's nothing new under the sun and all things come to ruin is kind of the gist of the book. If you take it from the cynical man's point of view, the wise cynical man's point of view. So maybe I'm getting a little bit too heady here, but the point that I'm trying to draw here is that matter matters. Like us as physical beings matter. What we're doing for work matters. Maybe not in the eternal sense that the success of our hands, the work of our hands, is tied to the success of ourselves eternally. It's good to separate those things, but I really want to point out that like we're having an eternal battle in ourselves and on material grounds. So these kinds of things matter. All to say, these kinds of things matter. I came to a resolution at the start of the year 2026 that with my personality type being such that I get so hyper focused on so many different things all the time, and I get distracted, and I needed to bear down and select a few things. One of the things that I selected was 10 talent trading. I really, since middle school, have enjoyed the study of finance and patterns just in general. I'm very much, and I don't mean that I'm good at it. I just mean that generally speaking, compared to other people, I've noticed that I'm a systems thinker. I really enjoy thinking about systems. I'm sure there's a ton of people out there that are way more intelligent on that front than I'll ever be in designing systems. But I really enjoy thinking about them. Like that's a pastime for me. I'm the type of guy that really loves making and like RPG games, like all these different classes that develop into specific niches. And I love the idea of like fleshing out, building my own video game. And I really love when I'm designing homes, like thinking through how they're going to live inside the home. I like systems. So this is one of those things for me that I really enjoy studying the system that is the market, which is like a huge poker game between a whole bunch of different people. And it's this fantastic mental exercise, or I think so. Others might disagree, but it's a fantastic mental exercise that you can jump into something that's math based. You're looking at charts and reading technical analysis. You're watching the news and trying to um, ascertain, to intuit other people's opinion, so to speak, on any given ticker at any given moment. That's cool. That's really cool. What it's not to me, I want to make that very clear. What this is not to me is a place to gamble. Because and this is one of the, and rightly so, one of the common things I would say that Christians will complain about in reference to day trading, just investments in the stock market in general, is that it's associated to risk. It's not tied directly to labor of your hands in a very literal sense. This is definitely work, but it doesn't tie directly to that. And so I think there's a lot of skepticism and frustration. Not with everyone, obviously. Plenty of people understand. What I'd say is my perspective on this, which is that this is the work of your hands. This does require patience and to express, and I would say even to exaggerate at times, the virtues that God calls us to aspire to. This is tough. This is tough. And I think that, overall, not to get too deep into finance as it stands, I think overall it is doing good things. There's a lot of evil in it. There's a lot of love for money. Obviously, that plays a huge part in how the market develops, and how it interacts, how people inside that's what I'm trying to say. How people in the market interact with one another is very based on greed, unfortunately. So I would say that I'm aware of the problems that come with this. And I'd hope that anybody else looking to seek out this kind of strategization of these plays, like what I'm trying to do with 10 talent trading, would recognize that there are traps here. But if you can control yourself, if I can control myself and my greed and my fear, that's a huge part of it too. My anxiety, I need to control greed, anxiety. I need to practice patience, and I need to be scientific. Not that that's necessarily expressly Christian virtue, but I would say that has a lot to do with like truth seeking, and that's why like we record all of these plays that we make so that we know like, all right, this is what happened. This is really what happened. And then that's a huge part of why I'm doing these videos. Even if they go nowhere and nobody listens to these, for me to be able to listen back to them, it forces me to humble myself and go, yep, I screwed up back then. I did this wrong. I did this wrong. I did this wrong. And that goes a long ways in developing character, the type of character that you need, I think, to be successful at this. Or at least that's the theory. I see other people out there being profitable with it. So I would say that there has to be an established pattern, at least a fair few of them, that would work in the long term. And so, I think I read earlier on, I'll probably do it again today, actually, read through the parable of the talents now that I have better audio, and try my best to um, fully express what exactly that means to the name of 10 talent trading and what I'm trying to do with this. I'm gonna hit pause for a second here. All right, I'm going to read the parable of the talents again. Now that my mic actually works, because I did that I think in the first or second video that I did, and nobody could hear it. I couldn't hear it. I did a horrible job with that. I'm gonna try to stay up on the mic this time. I'm gonna read through it. Feel free to skip ahead. I'll put a little number up on the screen, timestamp. There's the word for it, so that you guys can skip ahead if you just want to read this on your own time. Parable of the talents starts in Matthew 25:14. And again, I'm in the ESV. For it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted to them his property. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, to each according to his ability. Then he went away, he who had received the 5 talents, went at once and traded with them, and he made 5 talents more. So also he who had the 2 talents made 2 talents more. But he who had received the 1 talent went and dug in the ground and hid his master's money. Okay, we're gonna pause there for a second. For context, talents. It's probably where this comes from in the English language for talents, meaning like your skills. Because this obviously isn't referring to just money. That's the example that we're being given here. But this is referring to all the resources that God's entrusted with us to steward in our lives. That includes our time, that includes our money, that includes our skill set, includes our influence, it includes our anything that has to do with a tool that can be used to further God's kingdom. It has to do with the parable of the talents. So don't read it just in the context of money. And talents, just to kind of give a little more context on that. This isn't like I gave this guy $5, this guy $2, this guy $1. Like this is not a small amount of money. I forget the exact total. I had it pulled up earlier. Let me see if I still have that. But it was a large amount of money. Like I think it was more than a year's wage. It was like several years' wage for an individual was 1 talent. So I just want to give the context there. Like this is a lot of money. So even the guy that only receives a talent, it's not like it's like nothing and he has nothing to do with this. This is a lot of money. Even just the 1 talent that anybody could start up a small business with. You could invest it somewhere. You could do a lot with this money. So, all right, back into it. Where was I at? 5 talents more, 2 talents, 19. Now, after a long time, the master of those servants came and settled accounts with them. And he who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 talents more, saying, Master, you delivered to me 5 talents. Here I have made 5 talents more. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. And he also, who had the 2 talents, came forward, saying, Master, you delivered to me 2 talents. Here I have made 2 talents more. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little, and I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. I want to pause for a moment. I called to this last time too. I want to call to it again. Some people miss this. This is a huge part of this passage that needs understood, because I think a lot of Christians get this wrong. Certainly, Mormons get a lot of things wrong, but this is one of the chief things that they get wrong when they're reading the Bible. In that, what this is, I think, a huge part of what this is calling out to. It can call out to a few different things, but this really calls out to, it's not about the material success. And that's, kind of what I talked about earlier. It's not about the material success. It's about where your heart's at. It's about what you're doing. These people, and that's why, like, in my platform, this is, partly I'm recording the total profit that I'm making and recording the profit by percentage compared to what I have. And that's because to verify these strategies, it's not just about, like coming in and making a whole bunch of money in this one trade, and that establishes the success of the trade. What establishes the success of the trade is the underlying pattern, the underlying, structure of what we're following. And so that's why I put profit loss in terms of percentage, because that number of profit loss, might, if I'm making more and more money on things, it might go up and up and up and up and up. But if I'm watching the other side of it and the percentage of that profit loss is coming down, 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 my actual success is receding, not increasing. Because my account's growing in value and compounding interest is taking place, I might be seeing an improvement in the total profit that I'm bringing in, but by percentage, I'm making less and less on that. The value, the quality, I should say, of the trades that I'm making are actually, decreasing. And that's not the whole point. I'm using this as an example for what's happening here, which is that you have a man who's handed 5 and a man who's handed 2. The man who has 5 brings 5 more. A man who has 2 brings 2 more. So it's not that the master's simply happy that he's being, this is important. It's not that the master's just happy that he was receiving more money. He's happy for the heart of these individuals that they went forward and did well with this, and they receive an identical response from the master. So I think in part what this is establishing is that it's not because one makes 3 more than the other in net. I don't know. Maybe that doesn't matter at all, but I think that if that didn't matter, Jesus would have just used one example and then moved on to the other. It would have been one contrasting the other, but instead Jesus gives us 2 good examples, and then we're about to go into the poor example. But he gives us a good example, and they both receive the exact same response, like word for word, receive the exact same response from their master. I think that's important. I think that's really important, and you can draw other things from that too, but I feel like that just gets missed a lot, and it's like, oh, he's just reiterating it. So, well, yes, but like, there's a reason he uses different values, and I think that really proves out the justice. I mean, I might be exaggerating this a little bit because I find it cool, but it really proves out the justice of or the just heart of this master and the way he's viewing these individuals, because he recognizes it's like, I gave you these gifts. I gave you this time. I gave you these skills. I gave you this resource. Whatever, I've given you these things. I want to see you do well with them. And he's glad for that. So, I don't know. Really cool. So, jumping ahead to the next servant. You have been faithful over little, such a much. Now we're in 24, 25, 24. He also, who had received the 1 talent, came forward saying, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you scattered no seed. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here, you have what is yours. But his master answered him, You wicked and slothful servant. You knew that I reap where I have not sown, and gather where I scattered no seed. Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and at my coming I should have received what was mine with interest. So take the talent from him, and give it to him who has the 10 talents. For to everyone who has will more be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away, and cast the worthless servant into the outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Non-Christians will read this passage. People that haven't, even young Christians, I imagine, because I think I was among these people, will read this passage and think, "Oh, that's harsh," and it's tough. It's really tough. And I think the reason it comes across as harsh and tough isn't because it's unjust. I think it's because so many of us, fit into the mode of being of the wicked and slothful servant. Pause on that for a second. It hurts, it definitely hurts, but it's true. I know that I've had times in the past, like, to give an example for myself here. I had times in my past, where a lot of my money was just locked up in a bank account. And you can find, and I should have probably pulled those notes here, but you can find in scripture plenty of examples. We'll do this in a later video, but you can find plenty of passages in scripture that refer to the hoarding of wealth as a sin, like expressly as a sin. And I think that a lot of that has to do not with necessarily the accrual of wealth and utilizing it for the kingdom, for bettering yourself, your family, others. Like, I think that a lot of what we see in the Bible that points towards greed and storing up in barns. I'm trying to remember where that passage is at, but in storing up in barns is that, well, there's a lot of reasons, but at least one of them is that wealth is useless to yourself, to your community, if it's just sitting in a bank account. I did that with a lot of my money for a while, like with a substantial amount of cash. Um, I just had it sitting in a bank account, and that's what he's done here. He's just buried it in the ground. Unfortunately, we also have a inflationary currency, whereas talents weren't necessarily inflationary. We also have an inflationary currency. So from a practical standpoint, what I did was so horrible because I took money that God had been so graceful to hand to my family, and instead of trusting in him and utilizing it in a way that would have been helpful, I stored it up. And you know, it, you could go a lot of different ways with this argument because, we ended up using that money for this, that, and the other thing. There is still a lot to be said for storing up a rainy day fund. We want to be wise with our money. That's not to say that, all of your money should be locked up in risky investments, or like none of this is like technical financial advice that I'm giving right now. Like this I'm trying to focus on scripture and the heart and like how we're coming to the table on this, and then the technical analysis and like trying to actually become financially competent is kind of a not separate, but something that we have to build into. You can't just jump right in and focus on that before we fix the heart. So the heart issue that I had in this was like, I'm not trusting God with my money. I'm not trusting him with my resources because I'm just storing it up in a bank and assuming, way more than I needed for like a few months' pay, like a lot of money, like 20 grand that we had there at one point. A lot for a young couple, I should say. And this is wrong. This is wrong with me. Beating a dead horse here, but this slothful servant knew that God doesn't want him to do that. I think I knew and definitely know now that this isn't what God wanted me to do with my money at the time. All right, had to answer a text there real quick. I got caught up, and I think I was beating a dead horse anyways. But the gist of it is, we had money that we were just storing in barns, putting in our bank account. They weren't in an investment account. They weren't even accruing interest. We could have at least done that. And I know that that's not just that's the literal understanding of this passage. So it's fairly limited. This passage expands a lot further past that. So I don't mean to take this as let's boil it down to the literal interpretation of, well, you could have at least put it, in the bank and it could have accrued interest. Yes. But at the very least, we could have put it somewhere where it would have accrued interest. So all that being said, not that everybody would have to jump in and do this the way that I'm doing it. That's not what 10 talent trading is supposed to be about either necessarily. For me and my interest, for the skills and understanding that God's given me, for the passion that God's given me, because I have a long ways to go on the skill set for sure. But at least, the passion that God's given me towards understanding systems, this is one of the things that I'm really interested in. And I think it would be a waste of that to not take the spare time that I have in between jobs, because this is what this is for me, is the spare time in between jobs, to gather up information, to be able to put together this playbook and try to establish truth in a technical sense from the market and all the different plays that work for this. So again, want to stress, very important here, the trap of not taking this too far. This needs to stay capped well underneath our love and appreciation for God and his virtues and principles and his rightness and his path. I want to make that very clear, because money is one of those very dangerous things where, you've heard it said 1,000 times, like the absolute power corrupts absolutely. Money is just the root of all evil. Like you've heard the world and how they respond to these passages, and I would say that the Bible's view on this is certainly clear, but it's not an open condemnation of power or money. That's what people need to understand. It's like God does not call us like this. The parable of the talents makes this very clear. God's not calling us to be poor and weak. He's calling us to be generous and meek. There's a big difference there. There's a big difference there. And the parable of the talents makes this very clear. So if you've, been led to believe that money itself is evil, money's a tool. You can wield a pickaxe to dig for gold, or you can wield a pickaxe to cut your brother down in the field, frankly. And you know, it doesn't make the pickaxe evil. It makes the person wielding it in the wrong way evil. So, parable of the talents, 10 talent trading. I want to keep this understanding at the forefront of everything that I'm doing here and trying to steward my resources and money. And I want to take these lessons and apply them to other aspects of my life too. This isn't just a one-dimensional thing where all it's about is money. These are resources that I can utilize to fund other missionary work, other aspirations that I have, other aspects of my Bible study, family life. Like this, money is obviously a very broadly used tool. So this could go a lot of different directions, and how it can be helpful for a lot of different functions. And I don't want to downplay any of that, but the heart posture is the most important. Getting back to the man who was given 5, the man who was given 2. I think, not that it says explicitly in here, like, and the master was glad for their heart. Um, but for him to say, enter into the joy of your master, I think to me at least screams uh, of a commitment that the master had in that moment to the person, not just to his success. Enter into the joy of your master. Like the master's not just happy with the end result. The master's happy with the heart that came to him. Like he's not telling the action to enter into the joy of your master. He's telling the person, enter into the joy of your master. Like that's a invitation to relationship with your master there. And not just because they were successful, I don't think, but because they showed the heart that they had before them. They made clear that the master's resources that they had been lent were handled well as an outpouring of their love and appreciation for the master. That's what and maybe I'm reading too far into it because it's not stated super explicitly in that way. But when I read that, it both and following up for both the man with 5 talents and the man with 2 for their starting value, that's what I read from that. So yeah, and then I kind of wanted to call to a couple other passages as well as general guards going forward, because I'm entering into endeavor where greed and anxiety are very easy to fall into. These will be the easy traps, and I've noticed myself on a few of these trades, especially when they're going poorly, or and actually more especially when I've had some that have gone really well. Your brain can get caught up on like, oh, what happens if I do really well tomorrow, and maybe I can do that a few times over the course of the month, and then I'll have this much, and then I can buy this and do this with it. And calm. I gotta calm that down. Um, that's something to look out for. This is I would for me and where I'm at with this, as long as I keep coming back to scripture, noticing that in myself, I'm a sinner. I know I'm broken. I need Jesus for this. And that's why we're going to jump into Matthew 6:11 to kind of walk through the answer to that. But it's important to come back to this. I would say that if you're a Christian and you're jumping into day trading, at least my experience so far has been like, I've got to be in the word on these things frequently so that this exercise and entering into an arena where I am going to be prone to the slings and arrows of Satan, that it's metaphorical, but it's not, this is important to note that like I'm stepping into an arena where greed and anxiety are prevalent. I need to be armed for that. Otherwise, it's going to capture me. Now, going into that battle can be a very good thing if done in honor to God, first and foremost, and I can practice the courageousness, the meekness, the focus on generosity. A lot of that stems from honoring God first, and did I say courage already? My point is that I need to focus on the virtues that God's put in front of me that I need to exemplify to be successful in this. All right, enough on that. I'm going to jump into Matthew, which is, where is that? 6:19. This is on lay up treasures in heaven. Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and where the thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven where neither moth nor rust destroys and where thieves do not, where thieves do not break in and steal. I'm going to keep this in to keep this relatable because my tongue's sticking in my mouth from talking so much. Let me pause. So right away, it's just clear. This is a straightforward passage. Jesus speaks in a lot of parables and clarifies things when he comes back to the disciples a lot. This isn't hard. Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven where neither moth nor rust destroys and where thieves do not break in and steal. I don't know how to explain that any further. That's real straightforward. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The eye is the lamp of the body. So if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light in you is darkness, how great is the darkness? It's your eye, your attention. Like where's your attention at? And this is what I was talking about a minute ago. It's just if my attention is on, what can I do for me? Like, how am I going to pull all this money in? I'm going to have all this success. I'm going to, ignore that for now. Have all this success. Actually, let me pause it. All right. I had a call from work. Anyways, so don't lay up your treasures in heaven. I forget exactly where I was at on that, but the gist of it is, where's your attention? My attention at times is not in the right place, and it's very important to notice that and check yourself. I am trying my best to check myself on these things. It's definitely something that I'm prone to. A lot of people are. Not that makes it an excuse. Make that very clear. It's not an excuse, but we got to look out for it. I got to look out for it in myself. So going forward, I think that I should write this on a sticky note and put it on the wall for when I'm trading. But don't lay up your treasures on earth. Lay them up in heaven where they're not going to be stolen or destroyed by rust or moths. Pretty clear. And then the direct follow-up to that, and I love the obvious wisdom in these two things being right next to each other, because it's like a lot of the reason that we store up treasures on earth is because we're anxious about things. Like I know I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with my wife about, oh my gosh, it'd be so nice if I could just get this job, land this, make this much money, put it in the bank, and then not be stressed about tomorrow. Oh man. But God tells us not to worry. So here we go. Matthew 6:25. Therefore I tell you, do not be anxious about your life. There's a start. Do not be anxious about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, nor about your body, what you will put on. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothing? Look at the birds of the air. They neither sow nor reap, nor gather into barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not of more value than they? And which of you, by being anxious, can add a single hour to his span of life? And why are you anxious about clothing? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. I don't know if I struggle with this one as much. This one might be for the ladies. Sorry, ladies. Why are you anxious about clothing? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. And yet I tell you, even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. But if God so clothes the grass of the field, which today is alive and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, will he not much more clothe you, O you of little faith? Therefore, do not be anxious, saying, what shall we eat? Or what shall we drink? Or what shall we wear? For the Gentiles seek after all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them all. But seek first the kingdom of God and all of his, and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. Therefore, do not be anxious about tomorrow, for tomorrow will be anxious for itself. Sufficient for the day is its own trouble. Oh, if you can wrap your head around that fully and really just absorb every bit of that and believe it. You got to believe that. Oh man, the amount of weight that takes off your shoulders. Now that doesn't take the responsibility off yourself because a lot of people read this and like, God will take care of me. I can be lazy. I don't need to work hard today. No, that's not what he's saying. You still need to work. You still need to plan, or you ought to, I should say. You know what I mean? But don't throw away good planning, good strategizing, and a love. Like I've got a love for systems here. This maybe not a love. I've got a passion for systems here. I need to tamp that down a bit. But naturally, like I get excited about this kind of stuff, and I think a lot of guys do get excited about work in some way or another. Gals too, but especially for us men, I feel like the first half of this and like um, what you'll eat or what you'll drink. Like going back to the context of when this was written, the man was often the one providing for the household. In my house, that's where I'm at currently. We're trying this out in the real traditional sense, and so I've got to put in the effort and the time, and a lot of responsibility really falls on me to be able to uphold, um, what we're gonna eat, and that's that can be stressful in and of itself if you focus on that too much. Same thing for my wife. I know that it stresses her out because she ends up being responsible for, well, quite literally, like what's our kid gonna eat, and what's this gonna look like? Like what are we gonna wear? Like how are we gonna make it to this place on time? Like it's tough all the time to fight this. But having faith that God knows you need all these things. Um, Again, doesn't mean don't plan, but focus on staying productive and doing so in a godly, honorable manner. God will take care of you. Um, it's important to remember this. It's very important to remember this. And I think this is one of again, there's a reason this comes up after don't lay your treasures up on earth, lay them up in heaven is that the driving force of a lot of that greed, I think, really does come from a sense of fear. Um, and I think that's taken me over on a few of these trades for 10 talent trading is that I've dug in and I want to be right more than I need to just stick to the system and try to develop a pattern. Again, I mean this in a technical sense, finding the truth in the market, which is establishing a pattern that works. So that's the technical side of it. But to take that technical thing and to kind of port it over into understanding of this eternal thing, we're more than just the money we make on a trade, the food that we're able to put on the table for our families. These things are good, important, within their proper rank order. So got to keep that in mind. These are things that I really need to put up on a board and keep at the forefront of my mind when I'm in this trading because that's the real key, I think, to the emotional regulation. I notice that when I'm centered and balanced on that, I deal better with my customers through my design build company, MCR. I do better in my trading. I handle myself better in sticky situations, with conversations with friends, and the misses, and like these are really central parts to a lot of key aspects of our lives as humans. These are really common stressors, I should say, and even more so when you're doing day trading. So it's definitely got to keep that in mind. Don't want to beat a dead horse on this one again, too, but I think I had one more. Matthew, I don't even remember what I had this for. Temptations to sin. I might have put this in earlier and it would have made more sense, but I'll read it anyways. Woe to the world for temptations to sin, for it is necessary that temptations come. And that's the part I'm probably going to focus on. For it is necessary that temptations come, but woe to the one by whom the temptation comes. And if your hand or your foot causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. It is better for you to enter life crippled or lame than with 2 hands or 2 feet to be thrown into the eternal fire. And if your eye causes you to sin, tear it out and throw it away. It is better for you to enter life with 1 eye than with 2 eyes to be thrown into the hell of fire. I love the series The Chosen. I love Matthew's character in that show so much because I think the scene is like Jesus is reciting his Sermon on the Mount to Matthew, and they're kind of working through it. And Jesus is working through the details of what he wants to say to everyone, and Matthew's taking notes. And Jesus asks him to kind of like walk through the notes. And this is one that Matthew gets hung up on. Is like, wouldn't this just lead to a population of blind people? Because whose eye doesn't wander and cause them to sin? And Jesus like, that's the point. That's the point. So to give some thought to the eternal side of this before I get to the practical, how we apply this in the world. Um, yeah, we're all sinners. Like our eye causes us to sin. Don't gouge your eye out, please. don't, don't. Your hand's going to cause you to sin. Don't cut your hand off. I don't think anyone reads this and thinks that Jesus meant that literally. He's just trying to stress the importance of self control and holding yourself back from things, and how important that is. That it should take precedent over things that you view as like central to yourself. It's like, I don't want to lose my hands. I talk with them too much. I can't lose them. So I don't want to lose my hands. I don't want to lose my eyes. That's the point. It's like, these are such important things to you. Make following God's word more important than those things. You need to make it more important than those things. And so temptations to sin. Woe to the world for temptations to sin. It's necessary that temptations come. That's to me. I don't know. That comes across as kind of mysterious. Like, it's necessary that temptations come. Maybe I should dig into like different translations of that and try to understand that in better context. But woe to the one by whom the temptation comes. Which that one's a little bit more clear. That part of the verse, I should say, is a little bit more clear. But for it is necessary that temptations come. I'll have to think through that a little bit more in detail. But I guess for me, it just struck me as like, we're gonna have this no matter what in life. You're not getting away from it. So trying to kind of back to the 10 talents, like, we can't just hide our talents in the dirt. That's not gonna do any good for us. Like, this kind of calls that out also into attention, into the light. It's like, it's necessary that temptations come. You're gonna deal with this. Like, you're gonna have to fight greed. You're gonna have to overcome lust for power. You're gonna have to overcome these things. So the temptations are coming, whether you like it or not. Learn to overcome them. And in relation to trading, this of all the different endeavors I have in my life, I think is certainly the most prone to getting perverted by, I've already said this a few times, perverted by greed, and anxiety, and can go wrong very easily. This is like, doing these kinds of trades is by definition exposure to risk. That's what it's all about. So, I think it's worth noting. I think that's why, that's kind of why I put this in here. It's a little bit of an afterthought, I guess, in the way this video is getting structured, but it's really not. Like, this is important, that when it comes to aspects of our lives, 10 talent trading being one of mine at the moment, if I find out that I can't control my greed and my anxiety when I'm stepping into the arena for this, I need to cut it off. It needs to go away. So, I don't think I'm at that point or anything like that. I think I've managed my emotions fairly, at least well enough so far that we're in the green overall, and um, we're taking risks accordingly. This isn't something that I'm all that worried for myself at the moment, but uh, we got to watch that constantly. And I think a huge part of this too is you got to have other people, because the worst person to hold you accountable is yourself, and that's just the unfortunate truth in the way we work. We are not just beings by nature, and beyond that, it's so easy to and especially in trading, it is so easy if you do this in a vacuum that you are going to rationalize, oh, this is okay for me to do it this way, and yeah, I lost a little bit of money, but I'll make it back next week, and oh yeah, this strategy is not really working that well, but it's just because I haven't really been trying my best, and I'll come into it and I'm going to swing for the fence. So easy, so easy to just put all this out there like that, and distract yourself, confuse yourself, not hold yourself accountable. Um, if you're getting into trading, if you're a Christian, getting into day trading or anything else that has to do with financial manipulation of any kind, have an accountability partner. Find another Christian, um, with the same respect for these passages that we've gone through, and hopefully more broadly the Bible as a whole, God as a whole, Jesus as the defining figure of who we're trying to chase after. Chase those things. Chase those things. Chase after God first, and these other things will be added to you. Find someone for iron sharpening iron to take effect. Do not do this by yourself. Ever. Don't do this by yourself. I got my buddy John, who understands day trading. I wasn't going to jump back into this and touch it, except for the fact that he's in this also. And now we've been back and forth communicating, keeping each other accountable. I'm doing this channel, so that this keeps me accountable. It's all out there. So keep yourself accountable, whether that be with a friend or however you do that. But the temptation to sin, the temptation to turn this into something that it's not supposed to be, is very easy in day trading. So guard yourself from that. Okay. I think I went through all the different notes that I wanted to from scripture. Again, I'm gonna try to make this a little bit more visually appealing. There's not much going on here, but I can fix this. I could probably fix the video quality, probably work on the audio quality a little bit more in the future. But again, it's all about just resources that we got, and we'll make do as we go. Yeah, I've made this video long enough by now. Maybe in future videos, I'll kind of do some more stuff on myself personally and kind of talk through different projects and things that I'm trying to do. Because I think like a lot of, maybe that's what I'll talk about real quick before I hop off this is, for me, my worldly hopes for this is that this can fund a few of the other help to fund anyways a few of the other endeavors that I have in mind. Like I said, I run a design build company. That's my main to do, professionally speaking. Obviously, I'm a dad, got a wife, kid, 2 more on the way. Yeah, twins, that'll be fun. And so I stay fairly busy, really involved with family. Yeah, so that's kind of like the central part from a worldly perspective. God being the central part from a real and eternal perspective. Family being the central part from the worldly perspective. Second in line for like how much time I put into things is MCR, Modern Craftsman Residential, my design build company. That's again my main to do. I'm doing this on the side as well, and I have a few other smaller endeavors that I'm starting to kind of poke at. This year I kind of made a resolution to myself. It's like I gotta narrow down the number of things that I'm allowed to play with, touch, and handle. As far as like my professional um, efforts go. So maybe I'll talk more about those in the future. But what I'm kind of hoping for from a worldly perspective, to get back to the point, for Triple T, is I'd like it to generate an income that's relatively speaking, a decent chunk of change per hour by fostering good strategies that I can put into a playbook. So I want to compile this playbook, put all this together, make it so that it's clear, concise. I have the playbook written out, like how I actually enter, how I exit, where my stop losses are set, what my profit target should be for any given trade, the time of day that it's generally taken, and then like a stat overview of my success that's fluid. I can put these entries in and it'll actually like record all that for me and spit that out. That's my goal for the playbook and what I want to see happen with that. And then I want to use the proceeds from this strategically to loan the money from Triple T over to some of my other small business endeavors. So essentially, MCR right now, my design build business is what's funding my household, my family, for us to eat. Thank God for the work that he gives us there in that, and that's been really great. That's the work of my hands. That's the main thing that I do. And then this is kind of something that I've funded on the side with personal cash, so to speak, and trying to turn this into a little bit more and see what I can do with some of this endeavor and some of those other endeavors. Yeah, so that's kind of the general theme of what I'm trying to do here to build out this playbook. And yeah, yeah, we'll see where it goes. One thing, and I should have pulled this up. This would have been an important passage. Maybe I can put it in the notes. I'm so bad about like remembering specifically where things come from in the Bible. It's something I'm trying to get better about. I can remember like themes and things like that, but I'm so bad at like remembering specific verses and where they land in the Bible. But there's, I think it's also in Matthew. I won't find it quick enough for this video, but it's the gist of it basically goes like, don't go about saying we'll go to this city and make this much money. And how do you know what's going to happen when you can't even count the hairs in your head? Or I forget exactly how all of it plays together, but the gist is that, hey, you're just human. Don't make promises. Don't think that you can just speak things into existence. So, in setting out in all these endeavors, I want to make sure, and Triple T included, I want to make sure that I'm coming at it with the humility of knowing, like, I am not in control of where this lands. This could do great. It could fail. That's not the point. The point is where the heart's at in this, that I'm being responsible with my time, that I'm allocating only as much as what this really deserves, and that I'm doing it in a God honoring way. So to get back to the point that I made earlier, and maybe I end up cutting that out, so I'll just make it again anyways. But I don't want to reference God and something, because I am, and saying that this is 10 talent trading. Like I really want to stamp this and run somewhere with this. So in full honesty, in the back of my head, I'm thinking this would be really cool if I could build this YouTube channel up, and it'd be awesome to be able to build out a playbook and establish like a secure and good way to be profitable in trading, to do it in a responsible manner that honors God and is good for my family and the time that I'm able to put into this to generate an income that funds other ventures that are, Christ honoring. That's that's the hope. But I don't want to go so far to say, we'll go to this city and make this much money. I don't want to make the mistake that's called out in that verse and supposing the arrogance that I know where this is going to go. So all yielding to God's will in how things progress from here. But what I'll say from my perspective is, I've prayed on this, I've thought on this, I've read on this. I think that this is a good thing to move into for me for the moment. I'm still going to be really limited on the amount of time that I can put into these videos. Like I probably won't do this very often. And honestly, a lot of the reason that I feel like I'm able to justify a video of this length is because hopefully that there's some chance that, this content and actually going through the Bible reaches other people that are in this sphere. So all that to say, I won't be able to put a lot of time into this until it kind of earns more time off my calendar. I got to put more of it towards MCR. But I'm happy to be able to make a video like this in the spare time that I had right now, waiting for paint to dry out in the garage, working on some trim. So really glad I could sit down and do this. Thank you to any Yahoo who watched this and actually spent the time to listen to this really long video of some dude with a tan wall and a cheap microphone and a crappy camera on his laptop talking about God and day trading, which is an interesting and fun combo that I'm sure someone's already done before better than this. But thanks. Really appreciate you guys watching. If you could leave a thumbs, I'm going to do the YouTuber thing now. If you could leave a thumbs up and subscribe, that would be really cool. Like I said, trying to grow the channel. Would love to be able to have an excuse to put more time and focus into this, do more scriptural deep dives into productivity, finance, and how to steward our money from the lens of the parable of 10 talents. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, guys.